My name is Audrey Hager, and I am this year's Civics Club president. We would like to thank you all for attending tonight and making this program possible. And a special thanks goes out to all of the candidates that were able to attend despite their busy schedules. We would also like to take this time to apologize on behalf of the Civics Club and Congressman Massey for his absence this evening. We had some miscommunication, and because of a scheduling conflict, he cannot attend. We apologize for that, and we know he regrets not being able to be here with us this evening to spend time with the people of Owen County, and we ask that you honor our apology in his absence. I would now like to introduce Blair Harris.
Hi, I'm Blair Harris, the Civics Club Treasurer and tonight's moderator, who will now explain the layout of tonight's program. We will be calling candidates based on the position they're running for. We will then ask each candidate questions that we have prepared for them. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to the question, and if time allows, we will permit the other candidate 1 minute to respond. One last remark before we get started. As we've watched the presidential debates, we have seen enough slandering between Trump and Hillary for a lifetime, so we ask the candidates to stick to the issues and leave out any negative comment you have against your opponent. Also, as we announce the position of the candidates, we'll call PVAs, then so on and so forth, and you will come up and sit to ask questions, and our students will be asking the questions.
And first, we would like to ask the candidates for Property Valuation Administrator up to the stage. Good evening. I'm Madeline Shelton, Vice President of the Civics Club. First, Mr. Robertson, I would like to take a minute and ask you to introduce yourself to the audience.
Well, good evening. First, I want to certainly thank the Civics Club for putting this on. This is a really good event, 3 years running. First of all, I was raised in Owen County. I went to Owen County schools until the 6th grade. Then I was homeschooled from then on. Started working at 3 horse farms. I'd say everybody here knows them, each one. Martin Stables, Gatewood Stables, and Cobb Stables. Then I went on to a few different temporary jobs, then eventually to Toyota. In February of 2010 was hired as the field rep. Jimmy Cole hired me to be the field rep for the PVA's office. So ever since then, I've been working there. I'm married 8 years come this November. I have 4 kids, 2 adopted and 2 of my own. And I'm very proud, certainly, of my family.
Thank you. And next for Mrs. Johnson, the same question.
Most of you know me. I'm Jane Johnson. I was born and raised here in Owen County. I have 3 children. Went to high school here, graduated in 3 years, went on to Transylvania University on a full scholarship. Decided I didn't like college that well, wanted to come back to Owen County and serve the people. So that is why I'm back in Owen. Came back shortly. I did 2 trimesters at Transy, and that was enough for me. Came back and went to work at the ASCS office and have served the people of Owen County since then at that office. And then I went to work for Jimmy in February of 2010. Blake and I he's got 2 weeks on me. But we both went to work about the same time. I have been part-time part of the time, full-time part of the time. Right now I'm back to being full-time and chief deputy. So,
thank you. Mr. Robertson, what are your experiences in the Property Valuation Administration Office, and how has it gotten you to this point in your career?
Thinking about that question, there's so many experiences over 6 years. Certainly from the very start, being a field representative, getting out in the county, meeting people, I'd have to go knock on their doors. I would have to travel different farms, measure buildings, houses, take pictures, and so on and so forth. So that was a new experience for me, serving the public. You know, I had just been kind of a farm hand and a factory worker, and so the public work was totally different for me. So that the 6 years has certainly benefited me. Jimmy taught me a lot. He sent me to a lot of classes. I have what is called the SKA, which is the Senior Kentucky Assessor. It's about 210 classroom hours and 5 years experience. It's the same award that Jimmy also had. It's the highest award given out by the Department of Revenue. Also another certainly new experience for me happened this June. The governor vetted several candidates that passed the PVA exam, and he chose me. And so now I'm the PVA, and I think, you know, I'm very proud of my staff. I'm very proud of the office that I run. And I think we're fast, respectful. I think we give equal and fair treatment to everybody that we serve in the office. And rest assured, if I'm elected, that's exactly what you'll continue to get.
Thank you. Now for Mrs. Johnson. What are your experiences in the Property Valuation Administrator office, and how has it gotten you to this point in your career?
My experiences have been more in-office experience. I haven't done any field work. That would be my one negative. I have done all of the work inside the office. I was in charge of timekeeping. I was in charge of the budget and making and approving all payments that have been made out of the office since 2011. I also was in charge of the recaps, and both the preliminary and the final, which is the final determination of what our tax assessment values are going to be based on. I have been in charge of fire fees. I'm in charge of the mapping, which I'm still continuously doing all those things right now. I have taken a few classes. I do not have the SKAs because in my mind I feel like that the taxpayer should not be paying for me to be trained. So I took a few classes, but not a lot. Jimmy was a big supporter of classes. I just chose not to take them.
Thank you. Mr. Robertson, for your final question, please take a moment and tell us why you are the best candidate for this position.
So I think I'm the best candidate, certainly because of my experience, my education, the time I've spent, 6 years in the office, the governor appointing me. You know, I think as a leader, I'm always looking ahead. I think, for instance, I just was talking with Casey Ellis today, and we have a program that I've looked at called Connect GIS. That would be putting map systems online, and it would also be able to put addressing, be able to put fire hydrants, so much different stuff that our EMTs could use, our fire departments could use. It could draw everybody together. It could really bring the county tightly knitted. And so that's just a few of the things that I've looked at. Of course, with the election, you can only spend so much of your budget, so I'm kind of strapped for that. But those are the things ahead that I'm certainly looking for. You know, I think I can provide stability and consistency to the office. You know, I'm a hardworking family man and just want to continue to be your own county PVA. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, your final question is the same. Why are you the best candidate for this position?
Well, I can say all of the same things he kind of said because we both started at the same time, so we pretty much have the same experiences. When I took the PVA test, it was the first time I'd ever taken a test like that in a long, long time. Passed it on the first try, which was kind of a bonus for me. I was kind of excited about that. My main reason for wanting this job is to be a servant to the people of Owen County. I've worked for Owen County for many years. I love the people here, and I want to continue to serve them. I would like to make our office as open to the public as it can possibly be, and try to help people in any manner. Sometimes they come in, it's not necessarily about a tax issue. It might be something else, but we try to help them, and I would like to continue that. One of the main things I want to say is that I am honest, I'm fair, I'm hardworking, I am experienced in dealing with the public after several years of it, and I hope that you will vote for me in November because I am a good candidate. Not that Blake is not, I'm not saying he's not, we work together, we're friends, so we're not going to get mad at each other or anything like that, as Hillary and Trump have seemed to have done. Or at least I don't think we are. We work together every day, so we can't get too mad at each other. But I would like to ask that you consider voting for me, but most importantly, no matter what, please vote. That is your right as an American citizen, and that's the most important thing. Whether you vote for me, whether you vote for Blake, just vote.
Thank you both for your time. Next, we want to welcome our candidates for U.S. Representatives in Congress.
Good evening. My name is Autumn Hunter. Please take a couple of minutes and introduce yourself and why you're running for Congress.
Certainly. Hello, my name is Calvin Seidel. I'd like to thank the Civics Club for inviting me to come to this event. I'd like to thank Owen County High School for allowing their students to be able to do such wonderful things as to stay involved and to get informed. I graduated from Pikeville College in 2008 with a degree in political science and history. And the reason why I decided to study in that field was not so that I could become a lawyer, not so that I could become a teacher, but rather so that I could start running for office and have some knowledge about the history of politics and some knowledge about different issues and their histories. And so at the age of 23, I ran for my first election for City Council in Pikeville. I ran again in 2012 for the same office, and went about the work of informing people about my issues, doing the hard work of going door to door, putting out yard signs. Those things had fallen out of favor in Pikeville. And then this last year, my wife and I moved up to Highland Heights, which is just outside of Newport, hoping to find better economic opportunity due to the downturn in eastern Kentucky. And when we moved up here, I found that there was a need at the federal level for better representation.
Do you believe that America can have the balance between the right to bear arms and the reduction in gun violence? If so, how do you plan on reaching this balance?
That's a fantastic question. It's certainly an exceedingly important issue, one that I get many places across the district. I do believe that we can have balance between the right to bear arms and also making sure that we have a reasonable expectation of safety in our streets, in our homes, in our schools, in our public places. I think that part of the issue is that we have a lot of very, very good laws that are not being enforced at their full strength. So the first thing that I would like to do with regards to guns in Congress is I would like to see increased funding for the ATF, increased funding for police departments to make sure that they can continue to do their jobs of enforcing the laws that we already have, to make sure that that's being done. And then also, I don't think that we can make new laws without understanding the effects of those laws and the causes of the problem. And so the other thing that I would like to do is I'd like to allow the CDC to fund research into the causes of gun violence and perhaps what ways we can stomp out those roots to make sure that we have a reasonable expectation of safety. Because I don't think that we can go in on the first day and start saying, well, these are all the things we need to do and try to make a whole bunch of changes and then 5-10 years down the road see no difference at all.
In order to decrease our federal debt, you say we will have to resort to raising taxes. How do you plan on achieving this objective without losing the support of the lower and middle classes?
Certainly the debt is something that has been talked about at great length this election, and it seems as though one side of the conversation has been had, and that's that we need to cut spending in as many ways as possible. But very few people have talked about the need to raise government income. Historically, the United States has had as many as 12 and even 16 tax brackets to make sure that those who are doing better in life are paying a greater share to make sure that others can come up along with them. And since 1981, I believe, when Ronald Reagan was in office, he cut us down to 4 tax brackets. And so that has really shifted the weight of the tax burden to people that make less money instead of shifting it to people who are making more money. The other thing that I think that we need to do, in addition to creating more tax brackets and evening out loopholes, is we also need to look at new revenue streams. Something that I have talked about at length is certainly for Kentucky, industrial hemp as a means of being able to have a new system for having income. At the federal level, we need to talk about industrial hemp and certainly medical or even recreational marijuana as a new way for the government to raise taxes. Something else that we're not taxing right now is the purchase and sale of stocks and bonds outside of retirement vehicles. Certainly, we don't want to do anything to harm people trying to save for retirement. But when people have the kind of spare money to be able to buy and sell stocks and bonds, we need to make sure that we're getting taxes on that. If I go down to the corner store and buy a stick of gum, there's going to be taxes on it. So we need to make sure we're doing the same thing for all of our goods and services. And so that would be another revenue stream that I would look to make sure that we're getting a Uncle Sam's portion on.
You said you support mastery-based education rather than test-based initiatives. Could you explain this, please, for us?
Certainly. Recently, I watched a TED Talk online by a man named Sal Khan. It was a very intriguing 10 or 12 minutes. And the concept was that we should have an education system that seeks to teach the students how to master whatever the subject content is before we move them on to the next subject matter, whereas right now we teach as much as we can until the test happens. We test them, and then they pass or fail, and we go on to new material. Certainly, I don't mean this to be an attack on teachers. We have an amazing set of teachers in this country. My father is a teacher. My mother works in the education system. My step-parents both are educators. But the system as a whole needs to have a paradigm shift. Right now we have age-based classes rather than necessarily an ability-based system. And those would be things that I'd like to see discussed. I certainly don't think that we're going to be able to invent the wheel overnight. But I think that the incremental changes can be made to make sure that students are learning what they need to learn rather than trying everything they can to pass a test. And then many times forgetting whatever it was they had on the test because they don't need to know it anymore.
Final question. Why are you the best candidate for the position, and why should the people vote for you?
That is a great question. I'll tell you, it's such an interesting race, and I, even though my opponent isn't here, I'd like to thank him for also not running any sort of negative campaign advertising, not doing anything to put me through the mud. I've been very proud of the race that we have run because I think that we have an honest difference of opinion on the scope and the role of the federal government. As far as I can tell, my opponent thinks that the federal government is part of the problem, and that is where I humbly have to disagree. I think the federal government can be a part of the solution. Certainly it can't be the whole fix, like so many people on the left like to think, but I think that the government can be part of the solution. And so I would like to see somebody from Northern Kentucky go to Washington to advocate for Northern Kentucky, to make sure that what is best for Northern Kentucky is what happens, and not necessarily what's best for certain interests.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we'll speak with our candidates for state representatives.
Hello, my name is Brianna Shadler. Mr. Tackett, this question is for you. Please take a minute to introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for state representative.
Yes, ma'am. First, I want to thank you all for welcoming me here tonight to be a part of your civics class. I remember in high school when I was in civics class, I remember my teacher very, very well. Anyhow, we're here tonight. I'm going to introduce myself. I am the state rep for the 62nd. I'm Chuck Tackett. I have a family of 5 children. I have 3 boys and 2 daughters. My wife, Sandy. She is the love of my life. We had a special election on March the 8th. I was the winner that night. I went to Frankfort the next day to begin my career as being your state representative. It started out the first day being able to choose an office there in the annex, and the very next day it was on the job. That was the first thing that I did. The first order of business was I went to Leslie Combs' office. She is the chair of transportation. And the one thing I want to say about it is, that is one educated lady. I went to her office to find out where Owen County stood on the 6-year road plan. Priorities not in place. We immediately began work on your road priorities. The one thing about it was, people started reminding me, they said, you know you're not getting paid. You won't be paid until you're sworn in the next week. I said, it makes no difference. I'm here to do what's right for the state of Kentucky. But the one thing I want to say about myself and my family and all of us, my campaign slogan is always putting Kentucky families first, and that is my intentions, and that's what I intend to keep doing in Frankfort. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Haley Knoll. Mr. Pratt, this question is for you. We would like to ask you the same question.
Again, thank you all for hosting us tonight. Great forum, great deal. Thanks everybody coming out tonight. Phil Pratt, I was born and raised in Scott County. Grew up on a farm. Actually, my father was a tenant farmer. Went to Scott County High School. After high school, I decided that I would go to UK. I attended UK, got a degree in agriculture economics. After that, I turned around and worked for Southern States. I worked for Cargill Fertilizer, and I worked for Chemlon. I've been married to my wife, Martha Jane, for 36 years. And she has been a public school teacher for 28 years. I have 3 children and 2 grandkids. I have, and on the side, my sons want to make extra money. And I've always believed you should never be given anything. You need to work for what you get. So we started mowing the lawns on the side to give them extra money. Next year, 2 years later, my company was acquired, and I thought, you know, I can do this on my own. So in 1995, I started Pratt's Lawn and Landscape with a 1980 Suburban, one lawnmower, and 1 weed eater. 21 years later, we have 38 well-paid, well-trained employees. So with that, I know how to run a business, I know how to start up a business, and actually when I started my business, I literally had 0 in the bank. Why am I running? One of the reasons is state pension crisis. Guys, we have to solve that. It is going to actually eat us alive if we don't do something with this. The other one is stop the heroin and drug problem that is affecting so many of the youth in the state, and actually adults in the state. I also want to help solve the health care crisis. Guys, I've offered health insurance to my kids, to my employees since the 2nd year we were in business. And no matter which side of the aisle you're on, I can tell you this. Cost is going up, coverage is going down, co-pays are through the ceiling, and out-of-pocket expense is also just astronomical. So you have to really take a hard look at it. We have to get something done about this. 14 years ago, I had 14 different vendors bidding on my health care. Last year, we had 4. I understand one of those has now went out of business in Kentucky. So now we're down to 3. We have to solve this. I'd like to see us get back into having 14, 15 people bid on our health care again, and that would drive the cost down. The other thing is I will promote transparency, and our children and our grandkids deserve better government than what we're giving them. Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Pratt, this question is also for you. Sorry.
Back up.
Many people feel that the government has been a roadblock to economic opportunity.
What will you do to lobby government to ensure and develop economic growth in our communities?
Well, a couple things is, first of all, I do have an economics degree, so I understand economics and roadblocks. Also, supply, demand, and all the other good things that go with that. I am a small business owner. I've been there, I've lived it, and I've said over the years, despite the best efforts of the local, state, and federal government, I've managed to succeed. So I will definitely be an advocate for small business, large business, any business in the state of Kentucky. I'll give the governor credit for his red tape reduction, because I can tell you we deal with red tape every day, and I have a lady that I pay an astronomical amount of money, but she's worth every penny. But the reason I have to pay her that is because of all the forms we fill out daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. So without a doubt, I will work to make sure red tape is reduced and we make Kentucky business friendly again.
Thank you.
Mr. Taggett, this question is for you. You say by reforming Kentucky's outdated tax system, we could create thousands of new jobs for Kentucky's workers. Explain how this reformation would lead to more jobs.
Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry, I accidentally skipped a question. You say by reforming Kentucky's outdated tax system, we could create thousands of new jobs for Kentucky's workers. Explain how this reformation would lead to more jobs.
You're right. Our tax system is antiquated, that is for sure. And there's so many other things out there to do to make things better than where they are today. One thing that we have done, when I was on the fiscal court in Scott County, we offered Toyota tax incentives, and a lot of people don't understand, but that's a 10-year payout. And when that took place and whatnot, it was for the new Lexus line, which employed, I think it was 1,700 new employees. And what we did was, on the county side, we foregoed $2.5 million for the first 4 years, $1 million the next 4 years, and $300,000 the last 2 years. The same side of the city was exactly the same. So we were giving up $5 million a year for 4 years in Scott County, and then $2 million for the next 4, and then it would have totaled $600 for the last 2. And the thing about this was that was 50% of the payroll tax. And what happens there, that other factories that expanded and whatnot that didn't have 1,000 employees or more actually could, if they did additions and whatnot and grew in growth, that new employees that were only the ones that were eligible for the tax incentive break. So the one thing that we have to do here in Owen County, and it's the best thing that I can see we need to be done, we need to move forward with these road projects, the infrastructure from 845 into 22. It definitely needs to be done. That was one of the first prioritized. I think that's, I don't think so. That's a $35 million road project. We need to get that on the books. It is on the books, but we need to get the funding for it, get it coming this way where you all would be allowed to have new growth.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Pratt, this question is for you. Many people feel that the current tax system is unfair, especially towards the middle class. How do you plan to limit taxes on the middle class and make the system more fair?
The tax system is unfair towards middle class. Every time people talk about tax reform, it comes down to taxing the middle class. We pay more, small business pays more, and we need real tax reform. Now again, there's several options floating around there. I've looked at the flat tax, I've looked at consumption tax. There are several different options. I like a little bit of all of them, but I don't love all of them. So without that, when we talk about tax reform, let's look at real tax reform, one that does not punish the middle class, one that does not punish small business, and I'm talking about a real tax reform. So I agree, we need it, but it's not an easy subject to tackle. And that's one I would be glad to tackle as a small business leader. I understand it because we pay through the nose for taxes yearly, daily, monthly.
Mr. Tackett, this question is for you. You are working on proposing a jobs plan that supports Kentucky's businesses that hire Kentucky workers. Can you explain this plan to us?
Incentives. This day and time, it seems to be to move forward, as I talked about, as we did in Scott County with Toyota, the incentive packages that are available through the state programs and whatnot. These are a lifeline to bring new factories and whatnot. And I do know, being here in Owen County, it's become a second home to me. I actually have fallen in love with Owen County. I have 2 business partners here in Owen County. I too am a small business owner. understand the needs. I have 15 full-time employees there on my farms. We have quite a number of large acres and whatnot. We produce tobacco and cattle. But also in your neighboring county of Gallatin County, we still have a tobacco auction warehouse system. I understand the needs. I know what growth needs to take place. It's not an easy situation, but we must offer new jobs, new growth, incentives to bring them to this wonderful place. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Pratt, what is your stance on the regulation of firearms, and do you believe government should limit firearms in any way? If so, how?
I am NRA endorsed. I'm the only candidate up here NRA endorsed. No, I believe our Second Amendment was passed for the reason of the right to bear firearms. As long as you are not a criminal or have a criminal background, there is no reason why we should be regulated for what we have or what we hold in our hands. I'm sorry, but again, I will defend our Second Amendment to my last breath.
Thank you.
Mr. Tackett, this question is for you. How do you plan on restoring funding to Kentucky's universities?
Very good question. As you know, we cut it 4.5%, but I'm not going to put we in it. That had nothing to do with me. That was actually done by the college university presidents, the governor, House, and Senate leadership. The 4.5% cut on higher education was no more than placing a new tax on the middle income people that work in the state of Kentucky. The one thing that we do have in place, and it came under Wallace Wilkerson when he was governor, was Kentucky Lottery. Kentucky Lottery was put here to fund education. And at some point in time in the past, I've only been there a short time, where they borrowed money, taking money from that source. We need to put that money back into education. There is enough money to fund higher education to the rate that it has been in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Pratt, what are your plans for funding education within the state?
Having a wife for a teacher, that is something we discuss a lot at my house. And not only that, my new daughter-in-law just got into, is also a teacher. So when we talk about funding for education, I would like to see the fact that all the money that we spend on education makes it to the classroom. There is a lot lost between what is sent down and what actually gets to the classroom. I can tell you, my wife cannot pass up a dollar store or a Dollar Tree because she wants to go buy supplies for the classroom. So that is near and dear to my heart. I will work very hard to make sure that we are efficiently spending our money for education and that the funds are there. It has to be there because our youth and our education is too important to let us become uncompetitive with any country or any nation or any state.
Thank you.
Mr. Tackett, how do you feel about Common Core standards, and do you think they have a more positive or negative effect towards our education system and the future generations?
Common Core standards were derived for the entire United States of America and whatnot. And the reason being is there should be a fourth grader here in the state of Kentucky should have the same education source in California. It should never differ. And that's what Common Core is all about. The thing about Common Core is it was derived by educators, it was by the public, everyone that there is in the education division and whatnot, they were all a part of it. There's a lot of talk about maybe we should go away from Common Core and go to charter schools and whatnot. Personally, I don't believe that. I think Common Core has done a fine job educating all of our youth across the Commonwealth and the entire United States. And don't think we need to stray from that. It's done well. All of us have been under the same system and whatnot, and you look at what you have produced here. I remember back when we were in session and whatnot, we brought the Owen County High School basketball team on the floor, an entire team of the 3.5 GPA. Mr. Basketball for Owen County, Carson Williams, a perfect 4.0. So I don't think that we've got a system that's broke and we don't need to fix it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Pratt, we asked you the same question.
On Common Core?
Yes, sir.
Again, having a wife for a teacher, she will tell you Common Core needs to be fixed. The problem is the Common Core teachers teach to the test. They are not given the supplies, the training, or the ability to actually teach Common Core. The Common Core is good in theory, but if you don't give them the funds, the material to teach Common Core, how can we all be held to the same standard? And she will tell you every day the problem that she has with Common Core, it does not address the whole student. It only addresses the test, and that is an unfair grade system for everybody.
Thank you. This is a long one. Mr. Tackett, this question is for you. Keys Money, Kentucky's scholarship program, which rewards students for high grades throughout high school, is based on your yearly GPA. However, different districts have different grading scales. For examples, define an A as a 90% or above, while others, such as our own, define an A as 92% or above. While the difference in this grading margin may seem slight, it could amount to a $50 to $100 difference annually. For those of us who need scholarships and find ourselves in steep competition for many of them, there needs to be a stable and fair system for determining our Keys Money. What could you do to assure the reliability and fairness of the Keys Money system for 2017 and beyond?
Well, there's a couple of things that we could see and do with this and whatnot. I did do a little homework since I've been here tonight on the Keys program and whatnot, and a homeschool graduate must have an ACT composite score of 15 or better and an SAT score of 830 or better. Now, they have to be a U.S. citizen, national or permanent resident. But these things are irrelevant. You know, we've got to go to our local school boards. Those decisions are made there with your school superintendents. We as legislators, that's what we're in Frankfort for. Those people will come to Frankfort. We'll see what can be done and what can be derived to change those, because with a 90 and a 92, that is a fine line. And a student that gets a 90, they're still a great student. They're doing the right thing. They're getting a good education. So the Keys Money, whether it be $50 or $100 or $150 going toward that scholarship, it is a must. And just recently you had a student here, and I'm not going to call names and whatnot, for Gear Up Kentucky and whatnot, couldn't afford to go forward to college. I was there the day that she came to Frankfort in the Rotunda. It was an honor to be there for her because they didn't quite have the funding to get there, but now she has a scholarship to go to college and whatnot. And those are the right things to do. So yes, we need to define that fine line between the 90 and 92 for that money to be available. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Pratt, we asked the same question. I can read it again since it was a long one.
That's all right. Keys Money. I have 3 children that have went to college using Keys Money. So with that, I understand the importance of it and why it is important to get good grades and keep good grades. And I think it's good that the Keys system rewards those with good grades. But on the grading scale, that is something that needs to be done on the local level. I understand that if you take an AP class and get a B, it can be moved up to an A if it's not an AP class. So it's actually a local issue, not a state issue. And the problem of it is, once you get the state involved, not only in the keys, one of my wife's major complaints as teacher is that people in Frankfort come down with standards and they've never been in a classroom a day in their life. So actually, I think this needs to be a local issue, not a state issue, because she would tell you, and I would agree, keep the state out of the local schools, let you all run your schools, and let you guys decide what grades you should have. That's not a state issue, that's a local issue on the grades.
Thank you. Mr. Tackett, why are you the best candidate for your job?
Thank you. I have several reasons, and I'm going to name a few of my endorsements here tonight. One of them being the Kentucky Pact for Business Innovation and Growth for the state of Kentucky, which includes all the small businesses. Kentucky Professional Firefighters endorsement, Kentucky Education PAC endorsement, Better Schools Kentucky endorsement, all your labor group endorsements. Another reason, I spent 8 years on the Scott County Fiscal Court. While being on the court, Judge Lusby was our county judge. I was a part, actually, of the budget committee and whatnot. At that time, we ran a $34-35 million budget each year. There were 2 of us on that committee. I was honored to be a part of it. With your sheriff's department and your county clerk being fee pooling offices, it was up to myself and one other person to decide how much money it was going to take to run both of those offices and whatnot. And one thing about a budget, it doesn't, some people seem to think, and I see this with House Bill 303 and whatnot, A budget starts from day one, but that is not the final decision. You work through a budget, there's many hours spent, there's many meetings met. That's not the necessary factor in the end. But the one thing about it's the same in Frankfurt and whatnot. I hear a lot of talk about cutting the heroin spending and whatnot. In House Bill 303 in the end, the governor asked for $15.7 million to fight the heroin. That's exactly what we put in, was $15.7 million. So there's a lot of good reasons out there. The other reasons I'd like to tell you is that while on county government and whatnot, we had a purchase development right. That is to actually take the farmland in Scott County and whatnot. It is very active in Fayette County and whatnot, and we would purchase those development rights where a farm has to stay a farm, because with Scott County being the fastest growing county in the state of Kentucky, and now Georgetown has moved into the 7th largest city in the state of Kentucky, we've got to start protecting green space and whatnot. I was on a small area plan, and that was to protect green space in southern Scott County while I was a magistrate there. Another thing that was offered while being a county magistrate there, I took the 320 training hours that were available. And those have been good hours since I have gone to work in Frankfurt for you. Without those, I'm sure I would have been lost. Another would be Farm Bureau. I've been very active in Farm Bureau. I've been a first vice president. I'm still on their state tobacco advisory committee. While in Frankfurt now, I'm on several committees. I am on the Ag Committee, which I am a farmer by trade, local government, natural resources, program review and investigations, which we have just gone through a series of heroin epidemic. That is one that is under review right now. So those decisions will be ready by January for some of those decisions to be made. And one that I'm very proud of that affects Owen County in a big way is the State Tobacco Task Force. Tobacco is still a big key player right here in Owen County. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pratt, we ask the same question of you.
Why am I the best candidate? Because I am a true outsider. I have never held a public office. I am endorsed by the NFIB, by the Kentucky Chamber, and I am the only non-incumbent endorsed by the Kentucky Chamber. Also by the Kentucky Home Builders, Small Business Caucus, and while I did not get the KEA endorsement, my wife's team teacher was the KEA school representative, quit because I was not even given the courtesy of sending the questionnaire. In protest, he quit and the other teacher quit. So I may not be KEA endorsed, but I'm teacher endorsed. I will refuse the state pension. I think it's terrible that we have state representatives, while their pension is fully funded, we have KERS and KTCRS that are only funded to 16%. So I will lead by example. I will refuse that state pension. Also, as small business owners, we solve problems. I solve them daily, weekly, monthly. I have 38 employees that I get to work on a daily basis for a common goal. So I would like to take that on to Frankfurt. You know, I've grown my business by leading by example, hard work, honesty, integrity, and always telling my employees, do the right thing. You know, I tell them to exceed our customers' expectations. So all my employees will tell you, I am a leader, not a follower. I would like to take my agronomic background, my agricultural background, my agribusiness background, and my business degree background and put them to work for the people in the 62nd District.
Thank you. Thank you all both for coming.
And now we'll welcome our candidates for City Council to the stage.
Good evening. Will each candidate please take a moment to introduce themselves and explain why you are running for City Council?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I've been on City Council since 1982. I was the first one that ever ran against the incumbents. Not because I wanted to put somebody off council, because I'd always been involved in the community with the JCs and there were a lot of things we had got going that we wanted the city to continue to do and grow. So the reason I'm running for City Council again is I'm available. People come to me If they have a problem or want to see something done, I'm usually the first one that hears it. And after every meeting and everything, we go around to each council member to make their comments. They always start with me because they know when they get through the questions I've got, it's downhill to the closing meeting. So, you know, the reason I'm on the city council is because I like to serve the people. I'm around them all the time, and I've been in a lot of different positions around town, like president of the Historical Society and different other things too. Plus, I'm 29 years retired military, and that gives you a lot of experience in dealing with people and dealing with the things that come before us. What else was the question?
Oh, that's all for the first question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I'm Joan Kincaid, and first I'd like to thank you all for having us here tonight. Isn't it wonderful to see young people involved in our government and elections? And thank you very much, and for the Owen County High School for allowing us to be here. I worked for 36 years in local county government and retired from the county clerk's office. And I just decided I didn't like staying home and not being involved and seeing people, so I started doing some little odd jobs, and I got my real estate license. But yet I missed that government. I missed hearing people what they felt and what they needed, and so I decided I would put my hat in the race for the City Council of Owington. And so I work hard, and I'll try to be available, and I'll give you my number, 502-514-1138. I'm just a telephone call away, and I'll just ask you to vote for me on Election Day.
Thank you.
Mr. Perry, this question is for you. It has been very nice to see businesses like Bird Dogs open up in our downtown area. Do you have any programmatic proposals to aid in the revitalization of our downtown area and the community as a whole?
All right, one of the things we have done in the last few years and everything, we, like they talk about before, giving tax incentive. If a new business in the city wants to operate in the city of Owington, the first 3 years of their tax, we forgive. In other words, they don't have to pay any taxes to the 4th year to get their business established. And I brought up a few years ago about possibly making some low-interest loans for operating expenses for a new business. Needless to say, that didn't pass. Only 2 of us for it, and another 4 was against it. But the thing is, if we're not making anything on the money that we've got in the bank, so why not make it some kind of low-interest loans to get business started? The Bird Dog Cafe is one of the new businesses that started in town, and we just had a group that came in out of Kentucky, seeing the first impression they had as far as the city of Owington. And the city of Owington got a lot of high marks with our flags around. We're getting ready to start the new honor program around town. This draws people in. And that way, if they've got a business they want to look at a place to start, then we want to make this real friendly to them to come in. We've got a great school system. With the Park Service, we've improved our park. The city's presently working on getting funded to turn the Lower Thomas Lake into a recreation, all different types. It's going to take a lot of money, and we're applying for a lot of grants. But to develop that, when I was growing up, we used that to go out and fish with my father and the different ones, and they haven't been able to do that in a long time. We've had people before that didn't think that's important, but good recreation to keep people at home. I've got 3 children. One of them runs Elk Creek Hunt Club. One of them runs his own trucking business in Owington. And I got another one that works for the state, and he works 2 jobs to support his 5 children. I've got 8 granddaughters, so I'm hoping to see all of them be able to find a job close. So we've got to get new business in, and main thing is keep what we've got. Itron back there had problems and everything, and the city turned around and gave them a tax break in order to keep them in. A lot of people didn't think that was right, but to give their taxes on their building, but save their payroll tax, which helps operate the city of Owington, was a big deal. So we've got to keep business in. We've got to go out. You've got to sell. If you want a business to come into your Owington small town as this, then you've got to go out and sell Owington to them. I just brought it up to send the mayor, David Woltier, to a town down in Tennessee that's the same size as ours, so that he could see how they really improve tourism and different things in their town to bring more business in. And that town has actually doubled in size since they started doing that.
Mr. Perry, this question is also for you. This question is also for you, sir.
You said it was for
Yes.
They're not finished with you yet.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Have you done any research concerning what other communities similar to Owenton have done to bring in businesses, create jobs, and revenue for the communities?
To create jobs for the community? I couldn't hardly hear you, I'm sorry.
I'll repeat it. Have you done any research concerning what other communities similar to Owenton have done to bring in businesses, create jobs, and revenue for the communities?
I think that's what we were just talking about. The little town down in Tennessee has doubled their business just because of the incentives and different things. Again, one of the things I'd like to see, and you start noticing around, is the murals on the side of the buildings. There's a lot of people there's a small town in New Jersey that had their local art students and local businesses started letting them put murals on the side of their buildings. And not only did that draw in tourism, but it also, their businesses all created a bigger income because those people coming to town would turn around and spend money in town. We've got some of the best things available to us right now that we really need to take advantage of. One of them is the 127 yard sale that brings people here from all over the United States just about. And then we also have the Kentucky Speedway that twice a year you're getting several thousand people that come in. And most of them stop and buy either groceries or gas or something like that. One thing Owenton hasn't done that some of the others did, when these people come to town, some of the towns like Warsaw and some of them raise their prices and everything. That's not good for business. You know, they make big money while they're here, but you're killing the people wanting to come through that gives them a better impression of town. And like I said, our big thing is we got to sell the city and sell what's going on. We've been beautifying the city. If you notice, we put in 24 lights downtown. They're not really made for lighting up everything, but it's made to give that warm atmosphere of the downtown district, which a lot of people in the city, that's what they're looking for. So you're going to draw the businesses. And then the vacant buildings we need to get them fixed up, or I hate to say tore down because I'm being on the historical side. I hate to see a building tore down. We've lost too many buildings, but we need to do some kind of incentive to keep those businesses and get new businesses in.
Thank you.
Ms. Kincaid. It has been very nice to see businesses like Bird Dogs open up in our downtown area. Do you have any programmatic proposals to aid in the revitalization of our downtown area and the community as a whole?
Yes. Owenton has really come a long way in the last few years, thanks to the council and the mayors, and they've done a lot of improvements. I would like for us to continue to improve, and one thing that I think is like in the historical buildings, because Owenton has a lot of the historical buildings that's on the register. I'd like to see us apply for some grants for those historical buildings to help people to restore them, to bring them up to date, and to see businesses go in them. But I think one thing that we have to do is we have to let people know what we have in Owenton. And I think that's somewhat where we fall short, is that they come to Owenton, but they don't really know what we have. So we have to utilize the computer system, and we have to let people know what we have to offer them when they come. And I think that sometimes with the small businesses, it's really hard because they're having to buy their supplies, they're having to pay their rent, they're having to the utilities, they're having lots of overhead when they're trying to start their small business. So as a city, a council, I would like to see us be able to help our small business people by trying to promote their businesses through the tourism and through the computer systems, through the magazines that go out, and put some money into helping people know what Owenton has to offer. And I think when we travel around and go to the little days, the court days and things, we just got back from Preston and Mount Sterling, and there was lots of people there. We have Sweet Owen Day, and we have a pretty good crowd, but I'd like to see us become a Mount Sterling Day. And I think advertising and using the computer system and helping give assistance in this way will help us to let people know what we have to offer, and people will come.
Mr. Perry, do you have any plans or incentives for proposal to bring business to Owen County or keep the ones we have?
Any incentives for businesses now? What was the question? I'm sorry.
Do you have any plans or incentives for proposal to bring business to Owen County or keep the ones we have?
I think a lot of things. I'm on a lot of different boards all the way across the state. I'm Vice President of Eagle RC&D, which is a rural conservation district. And by traveling, I travel the state a lot. In fact, next 2 weeks I'm going to be traveling to Elizabethtown, all different towns, different prices. But I always try to promote Owenton wherever I go. And if I hear of a new business that's looking for a place to go, then I'm out there talking to them about, wouldn't it be nice to come to Owenton? We have the workers to do it. We've got everything you need with the schools, the water. We've upgraded our water systems, which used to be a problem. We now have natural gas, which we was one of the only county in the state of Kentucky didn't have natural gas. And due to a $5 million grant and everything we got natural gas, so that's not an excuse now for a factory not to come in. We built the spec building out there at Industrial Road, which right now it's been leased to Itron, but they're moving that. So that building's coming available again. It's owned by Curtis Loretto. But I'd like to see a business come in. If you had 40 or 50 employees, it doesn't sound like a whole lot, but that's big for a small town. And a lot of people go after those 300 and 400 employees thing, but we need to look for the small businesses. They're the ones that are looking for a location where they can move around.
Thank you.
Ms. Kincaid, we'll ask you the same question. Do you have any plans or incentives for proposal to bring business to Owen County or keep the ones we have?
I think we have to have a line of communications between the existing businesses and the Council of Owenton and our county judge executive. I think we have to work together and we have to face the problems together, because not only is it a city problem or the business problem, but it's a county problem. So we need to work together as a group to help solve the problems. And we've got to put our thinking caps on, and we've got to get past, well, this is the boundary lines of this is just Owenton or this is Owen County. We're in this fight together. And we have to work together and keep the communications open with the companies and find out what their needs are and what their problems are, and talk with them and talk with the chamber. Let the chamber know. We need to have a plan that when property comes available in Owenton, we need to let the chamber know. We need to let people know. Well, we've got lots that's got septic system. We've got lots that's got water available. It's great for this or great for that, and work with letting not only the individuals know, let everyone on the internet, so that when they're out looking, and let them know that we've got properties that's in the city limits that's available. We've got building lots, and let them know that, I agree with Larry. The tax break has really helped some of the small businesses, and I think we need to continue to do that. We need to continue to think of ways to assist them, but I think regular communications between the business owners and the chamber and the county judge executive and the city council and the mayor, we need to work together.
Thank you. Mr. Perry, this question is for you. How can the city address the drug problems in the city and county?
That's a good question. If anybody's got any good answers, so let us know. But no, seriously, the drug problem is bad in Owenton. You don't hear a lot of it. We've had more arrests this year and more increased drug trafficking than we've ever had. And we're actually cracking down on it and getting a lot of hopefully the person that's actually bring it into Owen County. A lot of it's coming out of Cincinnati and a lot of places. You all can help with that. If you see something suspicious, call us and notify us that you're seeing something. We'll check it out. If it turns out not to be somebody doing drugs or selling drugs, then fine. But if it is, we need to catch them and we need to prosecute them. As far as the drug addiction in Owen County, the ones that are hooked on it, we need to get them help. I've got a family member right now that's in rehab, and he straightened up there for a while, and then now he's gone back into it because he started hanging around with the same ones. And you know, that's a person that should never have got started in drugs to start with, but some of his best friends and peer pressure is one says, go ahead and try it, it won't hurt you, and then you're hooked. So our police officers are constantly taking training. They're constantly out there. We've got put cameras around the city of Owen to try to catch some of the drug trafficking around. Some of them at places that they have no idea that they're there, but that's what we've got to do to stop the drug problem. But it's a big problem not only for Owington, it's a big problem for everywhere, but you know, I worry about otherwhere, but I worry about the city of Owington itself having the drugs that we've got in here. And you're talking about somebody using heroin. Used to be marijuana and different other things we worried about. Now you're looking at heroin, you're looking at some of the old drugs starting to come back in, meth, different other types of drugs coming in. And believe it or not, too many people are able to hide the situation for a certain period of time. A good friend of mine is one of the main fighters across the state of Kentucky, Charlotte Wellington, that's worked to get help for people that's hooked on drugs, because the state has to help fund this, but you can't send them to rehab for a month and think they're going to be cured, because that's not going to happen. They'll go right back into it. So, you know, you need to start on a local level. Her son was 17 years old, committed suicide, and she had no idea that he was into drugs. So, I mean, the family should notice it first. If they start doing things out of the ordinary, then find out what's going on, because there's something that they're not telling you. I'm not saying that parents should be involved in everything the kid does, but they need to know if they're into the drugs, because it's hard to break them, and they're going to need help to get out of it.
Thank you.
Ms. Kincaid, we'd like to ask you the same question. How can the city address the drug problems in the city and county?
Unfortunately, drugs and alcohol has touched most families in one way or the other, and tragedy has come, and people are hurt, and people are hurting themselves each day. And I think we have to take a look at our ordinances that the city of Owington has, see if we can update or to change, to reach out to other communities and see what type of ordinances they have about the curfews, and see if there's things that we might be able to update or strengthen in order to help our police department. I think we have to be supportive of our police department and to get them as much education. We have to work with our school systems. We have to work with our churches. I think it's going to be a united effort if we're going to all have to work together in order to be able to help stop this. It's not one group that's going to be able to do it. But if we all unite, and I think, you know, supporting each other, supporting our REACH program, supporting the community programs that are available, coming up with possible programs that will educate our people even more so than what we have now. So being supportive of North Key, which is located there in Owington, the city, we have to take a look at every option that is available and be supportive as a city council and try to help them to come up and support them in ways that they are aware of that maybe we're not aware of through communications. But basically, I think one main thing is, as the City Council, we need to take a look at our ordinances that's been on the books for a while, see if they're being enforced, and see how if we can strengthen them or change them, get ideas from some other counties that maybe their rate is lower, and find out what they're doing to help to prevent this from happening in their communities.
Thank you.
Thank you both for your time.
I would like to thank everyone for being here and making this political forum possible. I would like to wish you all a good night and safe travels. The candidates will be at the tables in the hallway following the program if you have any further questions. Thank you.